3 minutes. That's all it took for a quiet afternoon to turn into chaos, and for a single dad to make a choice that would change his life forever. 1 second, he was sipping coffee, watching his son play. The next, he was staring down danger, and putting himself between a bullet and a little girl he didn't even know. By the time the dust settled, the girl's powerful CEO mother had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. But before I tell you how it happened, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel, because what you're about to hear will stay in your heart long after the story ends. The day had started out perfectly ordinary. Michael Carter, a 32-year-old single dad, was seated at the corner table of a small park cafe, his hands wrapped around a paper cup of steaming coffee. His 7-year-old son, Noah, was only a few yards away, chasing a soccer ball with the other kids in the play area. The sun hung warm overhead, the chatter of parents and the laughter of children blending into the background like a comforting soundtrack to a peaceful day. Michael had chosen this cafe because it was open, airy, and gave him a full view of Noah. As a single father, his mind was always half focused on the moment and half on the what-ifs of life. Today, though, felt calm. Safe. Ordinary. And then, it happened. At first, it was just a strange ripple in the air, a shift in the energy of the park. People's voices grew tense. Michael's eyes followed the sound of hurried footsteps and saw a man in a dark hoodie pushing through the small crowd by the cafe's counter. He was moving too quickly, too nervously. Michael's gut tightened. The man's hand was buried deep in his pocket, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. Before Michael could even stand, the man yanked out a gun. It was surreal. The sound of metal scraping against fabric, the glint of sunlight bouncing off cold steel, it all happened in seconds. People screamed. Coffee cups tumbled to the ground. Someone shouted, "Get down." The gunman's voice was shaking as he yelled at the barista, "The register. Now." Michael's eyes swept the scene, searching for Noah, but his son was still by the play area, frozen in confusion. That's when Michael saw her. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, standing just behind the cafe counter. She was wearing a yellow dress with tiny white flowers, her hair tied back in a messy braid. She wasn't screaming like the others, she just stood there, clutching a small stuffed rabbit, her wide eyes locked on the man with the gun. Michael's chest tightened. That look, frozen fear, was one he recognized. It was the same look Noah had the day Michael told him his mother wasn't coming back. The same look of a child who didn't understand why the world could suddenly become so cruel. The gunman's eyes flicked toward the girl. "Move," he barked. She didn't move. Maybe she couldn't. Michael's heart pounded. He knew what could happen if the man got agitated. His body moved before his mind had fully caught up. In a flash, he was up from his chair, shoving past the other terrified customers. The man saw him coming and swung the gun around, aiming directly at the little girl. There was no time to think. No time to plan. Michael launched himself forward, his body becoming a shield. The sound of the gunshot tore through the air like a crack of thunder. Pain exploded in his side, sharp and blinding, knocking the wind out of him. The little girl's stuffed rabbit slipped from her hand as she fell back, unhurt but trembling. The force of the bullet sent Michael stumbling to his knees, but he didn't fall completely. He stayed upright, his arm outstretched toward her, making sure she was out of the line of fire. People were screaming. Someone was shouting for the police. The gunman's eyes went wild, and he bolted, disappearing into the chaos just as sirens began to wail in the distance. Michael's vision blurred for a moment, but he forced himself to stay conscious. He felt small hands gripping his arm. "Mister, are you okay?" The girl's voice trembled. He managed a weak smile. "I'm fine, you're safe now." She shook her head. "You're bleeding." He tried to brush it off, but the warmth spreading through his shirt told him she was right. He looked past her, finally catching sight of Noah, who was running toward him with tears streaming down his face. Michael reached out his other arm, pulling his son close with what strength he had left. "It's okay, buddy. I'm okay," he whispered, even though he knew the ambulance couldn't get there fast enough. The cafe owner rushed over with napkins and tried to press them to Michael's wound. The little girl stayed beside him, holding his hand like she refused to let go. The minutes crawled by until the sound of screeching tires filled the air. A black luxury SUV stopped just outside the cafe. The door flew open, and a woman in a tailored navy suit and heels ran toward them. Her hair was perfect, but her face was pale and stricken. "Lily," she cried, her voice breaking as she dropped to her knees beside the girl. The child, Lily, threw herself into the woman's arms. "Mommy," she sobbed. The woman clutched her daughter tightly, then looked at Michael. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mix of horror and gratitude. You saved my daughter." Michael tried to speak, but the EMTs had arrived, and one of them was already checking his vitals, their voice urgent. The woman kept asking if he was going to be all right, but he could barely hear her over the ringing in his ears. As they loaded him into the ambulance, Michael caught one last glimpse of Lily, still holding her stuffed rabbit, her tear-streaked face peeking out from behind her mother's shoulder. And the woman, whoever she was watching him as if she just witnessed something she could never repay. That was the last thing he remembered before everything faded to white. Michael woke to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the faint scent of antiseptic. His side ached, but the warmth of a blanket and the quiet hum of the hospital gave him a strange sense of peace. Then he noticed her, standing at the foot of his bed. The woman from the cafe, her navy suit replaced by a soft cardigan, her eyes rimmed red as if she hadn't slept. "I'm Claire Bennett," she said softly. "CEO of Bennett & Company, and Lily's mom." She stepped closer, her voice shaking. "You don't know me, but you saved my entire world." Michael tried to smile. "Anyone would have done it." Claire shook her head. "No. Most people would have frozen. You didn't even hesitate." She placed a small stuffed rabbit on his bedside table. "Lily wanted you to have this, said you're her hero." The door cracked open, and Lily peeked in, her small face lighting up when she saw him. "Hi," she whispered. Michael's heart swelled. Claire's voice dropped. "I don't know how to thank you, but I'm going to try." And in that moment, Michael realized his life, and Noah's, was about to change forever.